Stareable Fest 2021 is a 4-day celebration of innovation and independent streaming series. We're a creator convention, bringing you the most relevant production workshops, panel discussions, giveaways, and an industry marketplace connecting the next wave of indie series to execs at AMC Networks, Blumhouse, Disney TV Animation, and more. We're a festival, screening your new faves, from rich fantasy to absurdist comedy, hosting an award ceremony, and several parties to kick it with your fellow fans and creators alike.
Hello, and welcome to today's very special event, our second annual Creator Achievement Award, honoring Derek Waters. Stareable Fest is the premier annual indie TV and web series festival in the US, and the new home for digital creative talent in the TV industry. We honor the year's best content and provide a space for the next generation of creators to connect with industry executives, grow their network, learn new skills, and build community. Stareable Fest is presented by Dell Technologies and NVIDIA, making workstation and monitor solutions purpose-built for creators like you. We'd also like to thank our other sponsors, AMC Networks, Disney TV Animation, Rizzle, and Just for Laughs for making Stareable Fest 2021 possible. My name is Ajay Kishore, and I'm the founder and CEO of Stareable. We're thrilled to have you join us for this special event. If this is your first event of the festival with us, just a few notes about interacting on our platform. Just a reminder that this is live and will be taped for later rebroadcast on Stareable's various channels. You can click the widget on the lower left corner to open the virtual screening room to watch any of the official selection projects of the festival. You can click on any of the audience to start a private video chat, though we'd hope you'd wait until after the event. If you haven't already, please allow your browser to enable your camera and your microphone. Click the gear icon in the top right corner and change the settings to enable both. Most importantly, we'll be taking your questions and comments, so please feel free to participate. To submit a question, click on the question mark button and type it to us. We will present our award to Derek, share with you a fireside chat, ask some questions from you, our audience, submit in advance. And now I'd like to start by sharing this compilation of Derek's work on drunk history. And so with that, I'd like to welcome our guest, Derek Waters. Derek is the co-creator of Drunk History, which ran for 6 years and earned 17 Primetime Emmy nominations along the way. Drunk History famously started as an indie digital show, and its evolution from a UCB sketch to YouTube clip to Funny or Die series to primetime Comedy Central show has been an inspiration for the community for close to a decade now. It's such an honor to have Derek here and to present him with the second annual Creator Achievement Award at Stareable Fest 2021. Please join me in welcoming Derek.
Whoa.
I'm so thrilled.
Thank you so much. This is so cool. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. I wasn't sure if shipping was going to bear with us and get that to you in time.
No, I know. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for sending it to the hostel that I'm staying in. I appreciate it. Thank you. What an honor. What an honor. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
I don't know who made all those clips, but I wouldn't have put a lot of that stuff in there. So I hope everyone is still here.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I think Drunk History is kind of one of those foundational web series that everyone has admired for so long. In researching for our chat, I came across you are a proud Marylander. I don't know if you know this. Issa Rae is also from Maryland. In fact, she and I went to elementary school together.
Whoa.
Which is also my way of saying I'm from Maryland. There aren't that many people from Maryland, right? And between the three of us, we have like literally dozens of Emmy nominations for shows that started out as web series. So, I mean, how can we explain this?
I don't know. What's in the water? I don't know. What's in the water, as they would say in Maryland. I don't know what's in the water. I don't know. I think I say this in the nicest way of like, it's a great place to say you used to live, as in I love it. But you know, you have to go where there is a great film community there. There wasn't when I lived there. I left in '99. But that's so great that are you 410?
301.
Oh, okay. Okay. We can still be friends though. I'm 410. That's a zip code, everyone.
Yes. That's one of a handful of
no, I love Maryland. I went to the same high school as Divine and Michael Phelps. So I'm sort of a mix between Divine and Michael Phelps.
I didn't know that Michael Phelps was a Marylander too. There are more of us out there than you would think.
Yes. We're a dying breed. Josh Charles. Yep. We're all here. And the community. Stareable.
So to pivot away from Maryland, you know, I think sometimes when we talk about like what it means to get a show on the air, it can feel like almost like a Rube Goldberg type situation. And you know, I think in the case of Drunk History, based on what I've read, it sounds like there was kind of a series of charmed inspirations that helped create the show. Given that we are a web series and an indie TV festival, I think we're all super interested in kind of that origin story and what it means to get these things off the ground. So can you walk us through kind of soup to nuts, the origin story of how it worked?
100%. Yeah. And I moved to Los Angeles in 2000. I didn't know anyone. I started doing Second City and sort of got like into a sketch group and started knowing certain people that I liked and gravitated towards. And, you know, I was realizing I do a lot better by just shooting my own stuff. But that took years of figuring that out, of trying all different sorts of things. And so I wanted to create a show at the Upright Citizens Brigade where I was kind of forced for myself and my friends to make things once a month and show them in front of an audience that you could actually hear if people were laughing aloud. It was called LOL, ironically. I don't use LOL. Even then I didn't. Now, I've always been a snob, but back then I used to be a very big snob. And my snobby thing, I like to say snob is like, you know, sometimes it's just specific. I was very specific. And at that time, the internet comedy was really enforcing the amount of hits more than content. And so I wanted to make a show where people would hear if someone was laughing and before you put it online. So the idea of Drunk History was just for this show. I was with my dear friend, Jake Johnson. We were both out of work actors. He's now, you know him from The New Girl and many great movies. But we were having a nice night where we had been drinking a little bit. And Jake was very enthusiastic to tell me this story about how when Otis Redding unfortunately passed away in a plane crash, that he knew this was going to happen. And that Otis knew. And the story was like, man, yeah, Otis looked at his wife and he was like, you take care of yourself, baby. Otis has got to go. And his wife was like, I will, Otis. I'll see you when you get back. No. Otis has got to go, baby. I'm not coming back. And like the way he was telling it, I was just like, man, imagine Otis Redding having to come back to life and move his lips to Jake's words, but then also looking at me like, this never happened, man. But then I thought, all right, how can I do that same joke, but also know if it's true or not, which is taking something from history, which is rarely talked about, and at least in the groups that I hang out with about. Let's talk about Alexander Hamilton and do shots. Maybe now, but back in 2007, that wasn't happening. So I thought, all right, maybe someone really passionate about a moment in history and make a drunk history channel. Like, it was just for this UCB show, and I didn't want to put it on the internet. There was Foot
What
Fist
year was
Way. This was 2007.
Okay.
And that year, Danny McBride's movie Foot Fist Way hadn't come out like to everyone. It was sort of this independent DVD that was floating around LA.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. And I was like, what if I tried to do that with this little DVD? And so I sent it to Saturday Night Live, Conan, Daily Show, any place that I thought maybe it could be a monthly sketch, and nothing. And then I was home for Christmas that year in 2007. I thought, everyone's so bored during the holidays. What if this was a video that people were like, oh, have you seen this drunk history video? And I always say this, that as good as the idea, I humbly say it was good, I don't think I would be sitting here if it wasn't for Michael Cera wanting to do it, because that's just part of the equation of getting people's attention. People don't go, hey, have you watched this really good idea? I wish it was like that. But Michael is also perfect for the part, and he's been a dear friend of mine forever. So it just made sense. But I'd be blind if I didn't admit that was a huge factor to it. That I put it up there, and it got on the front page of YouTube. And that was a big deal. I think it still is. And but then more. And and that was that. I was just like, okay, that's that. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it somehow goes for a very long time. It's a long story because I thought that was it.
Yeah, so I think it goes to the front page of YouTube, right? Which is one thing that we always talk about is like, well, how do we get visibility, right? But visibility is ultimately like a means to an end. So from there, like, what happens?
Jack Black saw it.
Okay.
And wanted to play Ben Franklin.
Did you know Jack Black?
I didn't, but the guy that I did it with, Jeremy Connor, was his assistant at the time. And so that's how Jack Black saw it. And, you can be as snobby as you want. You never say no to an opportunity to working with Jack Black. So that was like, okay, I'll do it one more time. And then Danny McBride said he wanted to do it. And I was like, well, this is a really cool full circle. Let's do it one more time.
So these are still UCB sketches that you're putting up on YouTube?
Just on YouTube. I was just putting on YouTube. I didn't have any page. And then, don't tell anyone. But, I was Funny or Die. I didn't know them. And they would just not steal. And I never thought of stealing. But they would take it from my page, my little like drunk history YouTube page, and put it on theirs. And I was like, this is awesome. This is great advertising. So it was never officially a Funny or Die series until we did it with HBO and Funny or Die. But so it did that. And then it got into Sundance and won the jury prize for Best American Short Film in 2010. I was like, okay, that's it. That's enough. Let's move on. That was really great. And I'm ever so thankful for it. But then Comedy Central said, well, could you make it a show? And I was like, yeah, how will it not get old? How will it not get old? I really never wanted it to get old. And I always was like, I think things that last, they have to have rules. And then one of my biggest rules was like, it cannot just be famous people moving their lips. There needs to be an added element. And the added element really was finding history that we should have been taught in school. So as what started as this idea of, wouldn't it be funny to see someone, because I also secretly, drunk or sober, I love seeing people who think they're really smart say things that aren't true. I love that. And that has a little bit of where the original idea came from. But then it morphed into like, okay, you got to be more than that. What else do you want to say? Using the same stage. Don't change the stage that you're on. Right. What else do you want to say on this stage that you've been so lucky to be on? And so it was the fight for these stories that have been slipped under the rug, whether it be race, sex, whatever it was, that would be the added bonus to this show, is that we would be teaching history without the audience knowing. That was always the main goal.
So just to rewind a little bit, though, so you said, well, Funny or Die borrowed your content.
Advertised, yeah.
Right. And from there, presumably it wasn't, the head people, Will Ferrell at Funny or Die that were borrowing or advertising the content. So kind of does it do extremely well at Funny or Die, and that's how it kind of gets the notice of?
It does well. And when Funny or Die did a show with HBO, and that's when I got hooked in with Will Ferrell and made the Will Ferrell played Abraham Lincoln and Don Cheadle was Frederick Douglass, with Zooey Deschanel as Mary Todd. And that's how then it became a Funny or Die thing, where we did Tesla and Edison, Crispin Glover as Edison, and John C. Reilly as Tesla. And then the other Funny or Die was 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, which was Jim Carrey and Ryan Gosling. So you can see why I'd be like, okay, it's not going to get any bigger. Like, it just kind of always felt like this is the best Make-A-Wish Foundation I've ever been part of. It must be the end. And it just kept going.
And so Funny or Die turns to you and says, okay, so we have this relationship at HBO. We're trying to create a special. We feel like this would be a good format. Or were you pitching the folks at Funny or Die, like, how do we turn this into something bigger? Like, what is that?
I never. Yeah. Well, the HBO Funny or Die is a separate thing than the Comedy Central. So Funny or Die and HBO was like, can we make a sketch show out of this? And it's like, well, yeah, but I don't want these to be them all being different types of drunk histories. Let's do some dumb sketches me and my friends can write, which ended up not being the best. But what came out of it was being able to make drunk history a little bigger than it was before, because before that it was shooting it in the backyard with our friends and renting these ridiculous outfits. And really the joke of like wearing modern shoes was because we couldn't afford these expensive shoes, and I'll talk about it a lot, but I really think those are why certain things last is you just allow it to be what it is, and you don't force it to be something. Like, I was never like, people actually did ask to make a movie of it, but man, I'm a stubborn person, and I just never wanted it to get old. And here's the other secret: 5 minutes is the perfect amount of time you can take a drunk person. You can't until the next one. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It would get old. And as a comedy snob, I just never wanted to get old. So luckily when Comedy Central wanted to do it, figured out a pretty cool form of, okay, each city, that'll be the theme, and we'll be learning things in each town. And then it evolved into kind of allowing me to do whatever I wanted, which some of those clips represented.
So you said that twice, that Comedy Central wanted to make the show. Like that conversation. Like, do you approach Comedy Central? Is it Funny or Die? Like, how do they become aware of the show? Like, what's that process of kind of like pitching it or developing it together?
Yeah, Jeremy and I, along with Will Ferrell and Adam McKay and Owen Burke at Gary Sanchez, would go. And the Comedy Central wasn't the only place we went to. We went to a couple different networks, but Comedy Central was the one that stood out of like, we want to allow you to make what you've been doing in a bigger way. However, they did want me to change the name. And there was a conversation about a new host because my energy tested low. I said, well, it must that must mean your tests are working, because I do have low energy. That is me. I mean, can you imagine if I would have just been like, hey, Jen Kirkman, how many drinks have you had? You look a little drunk. Like, who would have wanted to hang out with that guy? And I think because of my slow demeanor, I think people have always thought, oh, he must be drunk. And it's a similar vibe that I've always had to endure. But
what did they want to change the name to?
There were a lot of pitches, but one was history on the rocks. And I remember saying, well, the show will never be Party Time History hosted by Carson Daly. I'm sorry. And they trusted me. And luckily, um, I didn't surrender. But they, thinking about all this stuff and preparing what I was going to say today, I don't recall them ever saying you can't do that story. We were so lucky to tell the stories that we did in a forum that, or a network that doesn't really get to do a lot of like history or important stories.
Right. Well, and I think what's interesting, I mean, I would imagine at that point, talking to Comedy Central, these are like the biggest conversations of your professional career. And so, having a distinct sense of the identity of the project in your own voice that's balanced with like, I really want this to get made. Right. And
Right.
so like, what did you kind of tell yourself about like, where you were going to dig in your heels and where it made sense to kind of evolve the show in a collaborative kind of development process with Comedy Central or anyone else?
Well, it might be going back a little bit, but to answer your question, it came, it's that question like for all your viewers and creators out there is like, what you have, there's a choice. Do you want it to get made or do you want it to be made the way you want it? And sometimes you have to compromise because making it is the most important thing. You never want to compromise your intention. And there's a way to get, both in there. So the pilot was actually called Drunk History Across America. And the idea was that I had rented this short bus and I was going across the country to find out what happened here. I didn't know anything. It was kind of, I wasn't playing a character. I come across not the most intelligent. So it read fine of me trying to learn what happened in our country. So that was the idea. And I think the biggest note that Comedy Central gave for the whole existence of it was the best note. And it was after that and said, we think the show should be about the audience learning and not just your journey, which I'm so grateful for because that is the way it should have been. And sometimes it just takes doing it not that it was wrong, but doing it one way to realize, yes, that is not there's a better way than the way you chose. And so, does that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you think about that relationship to the audience, Drunk History did feel like one of these shows that had this word of mouth to it. I mean, just, kind of thinking about going viral in 2007 and all the various kind of evolutions and leaps of the project. How did you think about, or did you think about like creating community and buzz around your show? Like, was there something that really drove that word of mouth?
I mean, all right. So I think the pilot is 2013, maybe 14. It's in that realm. So Facebook exists, but not like it does now. It was like the fan pages. I'm being honest. Like I remember like getting really into like, look how many people like us in New York, like like all that crap. But I didn't. That was like the first year when I was just like, I wanted to get picked up. And then, I maybe more in the second season and on where I kind of played the role of what I wanted the audience. I wanted as the host, I also wanted to react as what I was hoping the audience would react to, or things that didn't make sense, that I was kind of the voice of that. And the community that I wanted it to appeal to is everyone, educated and uneducated. And also the idea of, whenever you hear someone preaching to you, sometimes you go down a little because you're like, all right, calm down. But if you feel like somebody's talking one-on-one to you, you listen a little more. And so I never wanted the show to be preachy. I never wanted it to come off and like, you didn't know this. Like, I want to be like, thank God we know this now. or, hey, you knew this, now a lot more people know it. And that's also the thing I have with history, is we're taught about these great people, and we have to like look up to them, when I think we'll understand them more if we look eye to eye to every human being. And I think that we as people will realize nobody's better than anyone else, and that we all start the same. And through life, we have to remember that. I don't know. I think looking up hurts your neck for a reason, and I think we should look eye to eye.
So
And that's
that
not just because I'm a short guy.
you don't read short. I'm going to repeat.
Thank you.
I was saying this before during the tech check. You don't read
I don't
short.
read, and I'm 3'2". Sorry.
So I think that's one of the interesting things about the show, is that you did this amazing job of servicing these unknown stories. Marsha P. Johnson, the Native American Alcatraz, the Section 504 sit-in, Robert Smalls. These, in the context of like looking eye to eye, these aren't stories from your own personal community. So, how do you think about, like, we had a panel earlier today about, extending your content to other communities and how you can be authentic while bringing in narratives that aren't your own. So how did you think about like learning about these stories, and how do you think about fostering an environment where these stories get surfaced?
Yeah, I've always said, like, when we would do the show, we had researchers that would research these stories, is the stories that I would want to hear about for them to pitch, and then we would pick which one we're going to do that season. Tell me stories that I wasn't taught in school that I should have been. So starting there, and then, talk about communities. I believe when you are lucky enough, and I was very lucky to have a voice in a world, in a community that, I don't know, shares a lot of the same stories. I was like, I want to use the voice that I've been so lucky to have in this world and tell other people's stories. And having the right people tell them. That's not me trying to tell other people's stories. It's me saying I was a creator of a show that allowed other stories to be told that might not be told in other places, because I believe that's why we're here. We're here to tell those untold stories. And what I say, those untold stories, we have to be able to tell the truth, bottom line. So how you can do that, you have to figure that out, and tell the truth in whatever job you're in. So that was always my goal. But how do you tell a Marsha P. Johnson story in a comedy show? And you have to have the right person narrate. You have to make sure the audience knows which side you're on, that you're on the good side of history. And again, the side that's saying more people need to know about this. That's the bottom line of the show, So, does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. I think similarly, when you look at the casting, even in some of the clips that we saw in the very beginning of the conversation, the casting cross like racial and gender lines. And, if I think it's a somewhat obvious thing to do, especially in comedy, right? There's an opportunity to kind of toy with the audience's expectations and subvert them. Mm-hmm. But yet at the same time, most shows just don't do it. Do you remember kind of thinking that could be a specific thing that you did, or was it organic? And like, how did you think about making that decision?
Well, I've always, I want to include everybody, and I want to always tell the best story. And I also don't believe that there should be so many rules in comedy, or even just anything, that anyone can be anyone. I've always believed that in the nicest way. But I think the first time in Drunk History was we had an amazing ensemble cast that would be scattered throughout every episode, where we would have, the leads and then our ensemble. And two of our leads, Asha Davis and Jeremy Tutson, both African American, didn't have a role in this one story. and the two roles open were Eleanor and Teddy Roosevelt. And we were like, well, why not? Why not? So so to answer your question, it wasn't like let's do this, but it was like why not? And then and we should, you know what I mean? Like and yeah, and then JT played Hitler. I mean, we really had a good time doing all that stuff because yeah, but I would never do it in the why not of like, no, there has to be a conscious effort of like, not anyone can be anyone. But for stuff like that, it's also a comedy show. You know what I mean? It's like, I want it to secretly be a history show, but it still needs to be a little funny, you know?
Right.
So,
And I think that idea of like making sure that people are having that good time. I've seen in other interviews, you've talked about how you got really big names to come on the show for essentially scale because they knew it was going to be fun. They were going to be surrounded by this like sense of love and support. I'll do something like very funny and silly. I think this is something that like independent creators are constantly trying to do, is like roping in friends to do something on a shoestring. Like how did you think about creating that campus atmosphere? Like what goes into that made it successfully sustainable?
I mean, it's a very hard question, but it's one that I like, you know, feel very passionate about because I've been out here for so long trying to do this, and I've been on sets that are toxic and not fun. And I just always made that promise, like to be lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to be in this like circle. Like it has to be fun, or what's the point of doing it? And so there are certain things I always want to make it fun. When we were doing the reenactments, there's no sound, you know, there's no sound whatsoever because all the sound has already been done with the narrator. So playing music, I really am a big fan of music in every way, and playing music on set, even during scenes, if they didn't have any dialogue, having music, you know, making that fun. And you know, just there's just something from the top. Well, you know, when people say it always starts from the top, it's like I don't really like to look at it like that. I never felt like people were working for us. It's like we're doing this together, and I think it's, if you're in that position, to remind everyone that no one's higher than anyone else, is that we're doing this together. And the smart people know that, and the other ones just need to be reminded of it, really, you know. And you know, the other good thing about doing it for scale, and I'm not saying I want to do that again. You know, I blame Comedy Central and their cheap ways, but was it deleted any a-holes? You know, I
Right.
started a production company called Be Nice or Leave, which is my polite way of saying no a-holes. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just making everything fun. Like when days are tough, there's gonna be stuff that doesn't go right. But if you're having fun, it won't go as bad as you thought.
Yeah. And I assume that in part you developed that ethos, you know, from doing UCB and other sorts of independent projects where, you know, you're trying to figure out how to motivate people, and you don't know, it's not a network show, right? So you don't even know that there's going to be any sort of visibility attached to it.
No.
You just got to paint that vision of what's possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, yeah, you have to. Yeah, and I think also people that are passionate, if you're passionate about a project, it bleeds in a good way, and people read that. People want to help passion. You can watch someone on TV or anywhere say something that you don't agree with or you really agree with, but if they're passionate about it, you can't take your eyes off of them. And I feel like that the same way with creativity is, if you're passionate about it and you're truly making it the best way you can and being good to others, then you're going to have a following. And that's why I created my cult.
so, I mean, I think, you know, when you think about like what comes next, the TV landscape has changed so dramatically over the lifetime of Drunk History. Like, how do you think about, you know, how the distribution landscape is changing if you like, where would you be taking like you are taking projects out now? Like, how are you thinking about like where to take them and what matters more to you these days?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, yes, it's a different world. I think the goods are there's never been a better time to make your own content. How you make your content, I think is hard. But there's never been a better time to make content. I think, there's this word out, the gatekeepers of Hollywood, the gatekeepers of TV. There's never been more of them. And I'm not making it like that's a negative thing. That's just a reality of how do you get your show, your idea through this massive amount of gatekeepers. There's too many. And I think it goes back to this is making your own stuff. I've been pitching stuff and it's not gone well recently. And I think people need to see certain things. Well, I'm not going to lie.
No,
I rented this outfit. No, but yeah, it's never. I've never. I think this is a harder time than it was when I started, and I don't say that again in a negative way. Just the reality is there's all these new platforms that you would think would make more opportunities, but it actually, in my humble opinion, it feels like it's the more platforms, the more gatekeepers of getting stuff in. And you know what they're all looking for? Groundbreaking shows. That's what they all say. So what are you looking for? A groundbreaking show. Okay, cool.
New voices, innovative voices.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah.
But as long as it's groundbreaking. Okay. This is LaCroix. I'm sponsored by LaCroix. LaCroix. I'm just kidding. I have no sponsor.
We should reach out to them for the next one of these.
That's right.
Well, so, I think that's exactly right. But, so what's your response to that when you think about like I believe this to my core, we should be making our own stuff. We should be like proving what's possible. We should, not be waiting for someone else's permission. But the reality of the situation is that there are gatekeepers. So how does one respond? Right. Like what's the smarter way to approach the
smarter way to approach is, remember, gatekeepers are just in the way of getting your show to that said platform. Nobody is stopping you from making what you believe in. And that's the core of what is great, is making what you believe in. Nobody is stopping you from what you believe in. And the more you believe in it, the more people will believe in it with you. So I think it's a reminder of that as these gatekeepers are looking for the groundbreaking show, that's actually your show. They just don't know it yet. So how do you let them know it? You make it. I think that's at least that's how I'm going to sleep at night, reminding myself that I just have to make it. And I think I take it as a compliment. If your idea is so specific, they can't picture it. So help them. It's not like, oh, they don't get me. It's like, no, be thankful they don't, because that means they've never thought of it and they can't picture it. So show it to them. So yeah, I was always better at showing than telling. So I think that's how I respond to it now, is people also want things finished for them. Oh, here you go. Do you want to cook dinner? No. Okay. Do you want dinner? Yes. Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that I love about web series too, is that it even for creative industry, I think, you don't want to have to rely on other people's creativity to see what's on the page, right? And so it allows someone to live in this universe that you want to create. Mm-hmm. And so it's a better way to convince someone that there's like a unique voice or a unique vision at work here.
Sorry, real quick, is that another reminder why you should do a web series is because sometimes you, the creator, have an idea, but you're not positive it's going to go all the way through. So doing this web series is almost a test for you, and not in a negative test way. in a way of like, no, this is how bad I know this show. And oh, I'm so glad I didn't have this on a network. I can figure it out, because I can throw a couple shows out there where you can see on TV right now that they were bought for either the idea or a celebrity, but they don't have a show. They just have an idea or someone famous behind it. And, you know, it's like when people say someone got lucky, like luck doesn't last. Like good shows last. Like lucky shows don't last either. So always remember that. And it's a,
yeah. No, I think that's a great point. Is, you know, it's about it's a journey, right? And everyone wants that, you know, golden handshake or elevator conversation that unlocks everything. But the more that you can continue to evolve and create something that's undeniable, the better that you're going to be able to pitch it and land those conversations.
Agree. And just one other reminder to people watching, fellow creators, is that the only reason, besides doing my UCB show, that I shot Drunk History was I had the idea, and when I pitched it, people said it sounded too much like Jackass. So that was a reaction. I love Jackass. I was like, what would be the prank? Hey, buddy, remember how drunk you got last night? Well, here's Jack Black moving his lips to it. It's like, I don't understand. So you can be frustrated, or you just go, okay, I guess I got to show him. So, you know, I always have to remind myself of that.
Would you do another web series?
I don't say no to anything.
Meaning, I guess, would you create another web series of your own?
I don't know. I mean, look, if the idea will only find its way, or if that's where the idea seems to stay, but to go like Drunk History was never like, oh, this is definitely going to be a web series. When Derek and Simon did a show with Simon Helberg from The Big Bang Theory and Bob Odenkirk, we just wanted to make stuff. You know, it was 2000, I'm going to guess 5. And the web wasn't really that, it existed, but a web series didn't. And then we tried to do it for HBO and it didn't get picked up, but then it got into Sundance, and then Super Deluxe had just started. And I never looked at it as a web series. It was just like, here's a place that's saying yes to allowing you to do the idea you have. So to answer your question, I just feel like I go idea first and then home late, where it's just like, I can't think of something like, oh yeah, I got to make a web series. What should it be about? It's like, oh, maybe this idea is best found on a web series. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. It's essentially like letting the project kind of take you on a journey and seeing what
and not putting pressure on it, just letting it be what it wants to be. And then, you know, and that's one of the things happened in Drunk History. It became bigger than me. I was like part of it. I didn't have any, like, it became bigger than I would have ever imagined.
Did you have a sense, like when you think about, if you're able to kind of rewind, like what did success look like at that moment in time when you started down that journey, 2007?
Well, there was no financial success, but there was a feeling of like, okay, I'm on to something. People that I really like are starting to like me. I don't have any money, but I'm making something I like. Right. In 2007, that's what it felt like, that, you know, maybe I'm on to something. But I also had so many other ideas that I was like, enough with this drunk thing. But it just kept, it was that thing that just kept saying, what about me? What about me? And I'm like, no, I have a passion project I want to do about Baltimore. No, I want to do this thing about this other thing. And all those projects, I tried so hard. And I think that's a reminder not to put pressure on things that I wanted them so bad. But maybe it was good. I had all my eggs in those baskets, and then Drunk History was like, this is somehow this is going to be the thing that will get you a tuxedo jacket.
Is there anything you're working on now that you want to
I mean,
potentially
yeah,
talk
I've been
about?
pitching stuff, and like I said, I started a production company called Be Nicer Leave, and we're developing a bunch of shows that I'm just out there trying to sell. But like I said, it's hard. It's very hard right now. So working to work.
We have, I think, a question or two from the audience. So we are going to take a quick screenshot. We're going to bring up someone from the audience to ask a question.
Great. Ben Ball. How you doing,
Hey, how's it
Ben?
going?
I'm
Hey,
good.
great,
You?
thanks. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for the
Is
talk
that
so
the-
far. It's
of
awesome.
course. Is that the Grand Tetons behind you?
Is that the? Oh, yeah. Well, my stepdad is Swiss, so I think so.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
Switzerland?
Switzerland. Okay.
Oh, I guess
It's
that
beautiful.
doesn't sound very Swiss. The Grand Tetons. No.
No, Grand Tetons, Wyoming, but it's okay. It looks beautiful.
No, I'm in Toronto. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Everything is very either Swiss or Canadian in here.
Loonies and Toonies. I lived on Sherbourne and Isabella.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I did Second City
For
there
what?
in 99.
Oh, amazing. So you did the Toronto Second City, or did you do Chicago
I
first?
took classes, just Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it more.
Oh, that's really cool. At the old firehouse? Hall or whatever.
After that on Blue Jay.
Oh,
Way.
after that. Okay, that's gone now too since quarantine apparently. Yeah.
R.I.P.
Sorry. Okay.
Give it to me, Ben.
So you're mentioning even at your level that there are tough places that you could still be in between projects, or when you're trying to pitch your next show. And I relate to that in the way where already, like, I'm obviously so green and I've only had so many ups and downs so far, but I've had some opportunities, but then there are the down slopes, and I get pretty down in those times because I'm still trying to push for this like dream of either being discovered or having a story like yours, like where something really gets a lot of attention. And in that time, like, I could get a job in the industry and keep myself busy, but it feels like I'm giving up. And maybe it isn't that way for real, but that's how it feels. So I abstain from that. And what would you say when you're in your position, when you already have the success and you could just chill if you wanted to? Maybe, I don't know your situation, but that's what I imagine. Like, when you really just want to keep making stuff and it's still hard and you're in that in between stage, like, how do you turn off, or how do you take those moments to enjoy yourself between your work in such a non-scheduled, like non-regimented line of work?
Wow, that's a very big question. I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that. Now, let me ask you really quick. When you said you could get a job in the industry, does that mean like working like behind the camera? Like, when you said, what's your dream? You want to do, you're an actor?
So actor, writer, whatever, like wearing all the hats right now, but I went to school for production. So it's like putting myself in my stuff so far. But in terms of the job I would get, it would be, in terms of the job I would get, to be fair, it's like I could shoot for something where they'd watch my stuff and believe I can get put in a higher rank, but I could easily get a job writing, like coiling cables that anybody could get. And I don't want to take that step down.
No, you don't want to do that type of job. Yeah. But I do think being around people and being part of production is, when you say the word green, like, that's how you become ungreen, because you start knowing and recognizing, oh, that's right, that's wrong, or also that's who I want to be like, that's who I don't want to be like. Those are always good things too. And I think finding, in classes where someone is at your level, finding your core group or people that are at your level, I think you come up with stuff better that way than like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yes, it really does.
But how do I step away from, sitting at a computer going, why won't they buy this?
Yeah.
You just have to remember, this is a cool life, and there's so many things in life to enjoy that you just have to find. This is a job and it's not life, and I think that's what I think a lot of people struggle with, is finding the difference between life and work. But it's a tough one to answer, I guess. Yeah, I thought. Day by day.
Okay. Well, thank you, Derek. I appreciate
Oh,
it. You
thank
seem like
you,
a really
Ben.
nice guy, and I
Oh,
appreciate
thank
all
you.
the work
You
you've
too,
done.
man. Keep going. Everything's gonna be all right.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy.
I think we have another question.
Awesome. Stareable. Is it from you? Elijah.
Hi, Derek.
Hey, Elijah. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
This has just been a burning question from all of my watching of Drunk History, but I was just curious if the narrators get to choose what they drink. Is it like a full bar?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, is there a type of alcohol that's shown up the most? Like if you were to like make a graph of it, or what's kind of been the most popular drink?
It's a great question. Yes, the rule that I always had, which was I want you to drink something tonight that you've never had a bad experience with. So that takes out a lot of certain things. But if I were to guess, the most common, look, I like to say beer makes you talk about things that happened 10 years ago that aren't important, and wine makes you boring and act like you're some philosopher. But bourbon makes you think you're the smartest person in the room, and that was always my favorite, that I would say most people had. And again, just a small little fun fact about the shows: when we would film, the first 2 hours you never ever see, because any human being with alcohol and a camera and a crew, it's just trying to be funny nonstop. So whenever someone says, "Man, you had the best job in the world," I was very lucky to have that job. But I like to remind them, yeah, but imagine if your job was going to a party every night, and that girl or guy who thinks they're the funniest at the party, you got to keep reminding them that they are so funny and nobody hates them. Alcohol's a poison.
I appreciate you getting people
Oh.
to such a comfortable, vulnerable, and honest state on
Yeah,
television.
thanks, Elijah, for pointing out, because there is a fine line of how do I make you vulnerable without exploiting. You know what I mean? And you can watch certain things where you're gonna be like, you're just making them not look smart. And I never, and kind of a rule against comedy, where comedy always says, play to your audience being the smartest. I like that. I always played that they were actually dumb and the narrator was the smartest. Like. That was always my goal. Not that I think anyone's dumb, but you know what I mean.
I love it. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Elijah.
So I have one last question.
Right.
So do you ever watch something on YouTube and think, this is brilliant, I see the legs on this? Like anything recently that you've seen that you'd want to share?
Oh God, why you got to end on that? I don't watch YouTube. I gave up on that shit years ago.
Gave up on YouTube?
No. Yes, and if I do, I like to try to find the creator, but I don't have any right off the top of my head of like, oh, this is someone great. Sorry, I should have gave you the fair warning not to ask me that one. But no, but I will note, some people that like comedy act like no one else is funny. I am the complete opposite. I love finding really funny stuff, and yeah. But I don't have most of the YouTube shit I watch, like old vintage stuff. I don't go to YouTube for comedy, but I should.
So where do you find it then? Maybe that's an interesting.
Oh, where do I find it?
Is it stand-up? Is it sketch? Is it other TV? Like what?
Yeah, I watch all the platforms for that. But right now that like when we were doing the show, I was looking at comics and stand-up specials and going to shows to find people like that. But now that I'm in this more creating phase right now, it's not like I'm shutting off comedy stuff. But yeah, I don't show any favorites. I watch them all. I watch it all. I'm a watcher. You would call me stareable. Some people would call me stareable because I stare at the TV.
I'm going to
looking
take
for that comedy.
one or many of these mentions of you saying Stareable and turn it into a ringtone, and it's going to bring me delight for years. So thank you for this. This has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, I just like to say, making something that you believe in is very scary, but not making it is scarier. So to anyone out there that has that idea that is scared, it's okay to be scared. Just make sure you make it, because I think the scarier it is, the more passion it's going to be, and your story has to be told, and you're going to make it. I think it's just a good reminder to remind yourself that nothing good in life is easy at all. And it doesn't mean like you have to fall on your face and that hard, but the only way you'll know something is good is by trying to make it. And don't ever, ever, ever stop, ever.
I think those are great words to end on. I want to say thank you again to Derek Waters for joining us this evening and sharing his experiences and insight. So honored to have you here.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this award. It is so cool. I love it.
It's really our pleasure.
It's really sweet of you. And I love your festival and what you guys are doing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again to the audience and for participating, for listening, for being part of this amazing community. Stareable Fest is presented by Dell Technologies and NVIDIA, making workstation and modular solutions purpose-built for creators like you. We'll see you tomorrow, Saturday, from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, a chance to meet the showrunner with Jeff Rake. Jeff Rake is an American producer and writer, creator of NBC's Manifest, which was picked up by Netflix for its final season. He is also the creator, executive producer, and writer of The Mysteries of Laura, and executive producer of The Tomorrow People. Don't miss that conversation. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great night, everyone.
Good night. Go Ravens.